All right, today we're diving into one of the most controversial and, let's be honest, sought after guides to strategy ever written, the 48 Laws of Power. Let's get right into it.
It's a question that kind of hangs over everything we do, doesn't it? From the boardroom to just, navigating daily life. We're all part of these invisible hierarchies and games of influence. The real question isn't if you're playing, it's how you're playing.
So we're going to walk through some of the core principles from Robert Greene's infamous book. Now, our goal here isn't to say go out and do this, not at all. It's to understand the logic behind these tactics, using the very same historical examples laid out in the source material.
Okay, first things first. The first battlefield isn't out in the world. It's in the minds of other people. According to these laws, real power starts with mastering how you are perceived.
This one is pretty counterintuitive, right? We think talking more, explaining more, makes us seem like we're in control, but this law flips that on its head. See, the more you say, the more likely you are to reveal something you shouldn't or just say something foolish. Silence keeps you mysterious. It keeps you in command. So get this, when King Louis XIV was given bad news, he wouldn't yell or make these big, elaborate threats. No, he'd simply say, "I shall see." Just 3 words. And that brief, ambiguous response left his entire court absolutely terrified. They had no idea what he was thinking, what his next move would be. His silence became this incredible source of power. But here's the other side of that coin. While silence is a powerful tool, so is being noticed. This law argues that it's way, way worse to be ignored than to be criticized. In the game of power, being irrelevant is basically a death sentence. You have to stand out. And Pablo Picasso, he was an absolute master of this. He just knew that any publicity, good or bad, kept his name on people's lips. He would rather create some shocking piece of art that got everyone arguing than paint something beautiful that was just forgotten. For him, attention itself was currency.
So you've started to control your image. What about your relationships? Well, this is where the laws get even more unsettling.
Yeah, this one is tough to swallow. The book argues that friendship, as a concept, often just clouds your judgment. Friends can get envious, they can feel entitled, and because you trust them, you're so much more vulnerable when they betray you. An enemy, on the other hand, they have something to prove, and they can often become a surprisingly loyal ally. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the Byzantine Empire for a brutal cautionary tale. Michael III showered his friend Basilius with power, with riches, everything. But that gratitude, it soured. It turned into greed. Basilius just wanted more. And in the end, he murdered the very man who gave him everything. A pretty harsh lesson in misplaced trust. So, if you can't rely on loyalty, what's left? Self-interest. This law is about pure pragmatism. When you need a hand, don't appeal to someone's kindness or remind them of a past favor. No. Instead, you show them exactly what's in it for them. Check this out. Back in 433 BC, 2 city-states needed Athens as an ally. The Corinthians came in and appealed to loyalty, to past debts, and they got rejected. The Corsairians, though, they came in and focused entirely on the future. They showed Athens how their combined navies could crush a common enemy. And guess what? Athens accepted immediately. The emotional plea lost, the practical one won. Simple as that. All right, we've talked about perception and we've talked about people. Now let's talk about action. These next laws are all about making calculated moves designed to outmaneuver your opponents and, ultimately, to win. This one's all about focus. Power gets diluted when you spread it too thin. Think about a magnifying glass focusing sunlight into a single burning point. That's what you have to do. Concentrate all of your energy, all of your resources on one key objective. That's how you achieve mastery. Think of your own power as a finite resource, because it is. Every ounce of your energy, every dollar, every single moment of your attention. If you spread it all out, you really don't achieve much of anything. But when you dedicate everything to a single point, you become unstoppable. Dilution is the real enemy of power. Now this one is all about turning your opponent's emotions into a weapon against them. See, an angry opponent is an irrational one. By poking at their insecurities, you can trigger this big emotional storm that makes them predictable, vulnerable, and a whole lot easier to catch. The strategy is basically a 4-step trap. First, you figure out your enemy's greatest desire, or their deepest fear. Then, you create some kind of diversion that plays on it. They react impulsively, emotionally, exposing their weaknesses. And that's the moment you strike. It's a cold, calculated exploitation of human nature.
So we've gone through image, relationships, and strategy. But what's the one law that ties them all together? Well, it's the most profound and maybe the most powerful one of them all.
The final and arguably most important law is all about adaptability. A rigid plan will always break. Think about the Spartans. They had the most feared army in the world, but their tactics, they never changed. They were predictable. And the Athenians, who were constantly evolving, they eventually defeated them. True power isn't fixed, it's fluid.
And you know, this quote from Bruce Lee just captures the essence of this final law perfectly. Power isn't a rock, it's water. It takes the shape of whatever container it's in, it can flow around any obstacle, and it can crash with unbelievable force. It is the ultimate form of adaptability.
So that leaves us with a final question for you. In this complex game of life, where these power dynamics are always at play, these laws offer a pretty ruthless guide. So, whether you choose to use them, defend against them, or simply understand them, you have to decide, what shape will you take?